like one.
I think everybody's here. I'll call the work session to order. If there are no objections or questions, I will place the minutes of the previous meeting, December 14th and 17th, on the agenda. Hearing none, we'll place that on the agenda. And items 3, 4, and 5, which are the treasurer's report, payment of general and federal fund bills, payment of cafeteria fund bills. If there's no questions or objections, I will have that placed on the agenda for Wednesday night. Hearing none, we'll move to Monday presentation. Auditor Mark Turner, please.
Thank you, board members, for having me here this evening. I left a lot of good information in front of you at your seat. The audit report for the school district for the year ended June 30th, 2020, and also a copy of the audit report for the Career Technical Center as well. But for the purposes of tonight's meeting, in order to present the board members with kind of a quick overview of the school district audit for the year, I set in front of you on top of the file of information a letter dated from January 22nd. That one of the first bullet points says general fund balance analysis, and that's the paperwork I'm going to concentrate on as part of my presentation. Just a couple quick comments before I get to this letter about your school district audit report, particular report. Two important pieces of information. One, in the very beginning of that report is the independent auditor's opinion, probably the most important pages from our perspective that we put in there. And what we've issued this year, as we have in the past for the Commonwealth School District, is what's known as an unmodified opinion. And what unmodified opinion means in our profession is that the information presented in the body of that report is presented in conformity with the rules and regulations of our profession, and there are no departures from those rules. So, in layman's terms, I like to tell the board that's a good thing. That's the type of opinion you want to have. Subsequent to that section in the big audit report, there's a section I always encourage my board members to read. It's called the Management Discussion and Analysis, and it's on Roman numeral pages 4 through 14. So again, when you get a chance, there's a lot of information to read, and I know you're inundated with a lot of information throughout the month, but when you get a chance, I encourage you to read that. The purpose of that section is to provide a synopsis again on how the school district did, not only for the year under audit, 1920, but also some comparative data, 1819 versus 1920. So again, an important section to read. Jumping back to this letter that I referred and set in front of you this evening, just to go through it briefly. On the bottom of the first page, I give you a 5-year history of the Conroe Area School District general fund balance, just the general fund. Now, this is the total general fund balance. I'm going to differentiate in a minute here. But you can see for the 1920 year at the bottom of this table, we ended with $8,377,880, which was a fairly significant jump from the previous year for various reasons, which we'll discuss in a moment, almost 29%. You see that big increase in the second year of the table. I'm just reminding the board members, those of you who have been on board for a while may remember this. There were some influx of monies in that year, which caused the big increase in the 16-17 year, but I just wanted to remind you of that. On the top of page 2 of this analysis, what I did was I extracted out of your total fund balance the portion known as unassigned. And unassigned means what money is not restricted or reserved for other purposes that was in this $8,377,000 on the first page of this 45. This is the amount of fund balance that's unassigned and available for general operating purposes going into the 2021 year. So again, I gave you a 5-year history of that. And much like the total overall fund balance, you can see the significant jump in the 1920 year. Now, the reason the unassigned fund balance is important is because that's a measurement tool that PDE uses to see if you're in compliance with what is known as Act 48 back in 2003, and it has to do with your millage. For the Connellsville School District, they set a threshold that in order for you to raise millage beyond the state-approved increase each year, they have an index that you're allowed to increase your real estate tax millage to. If you ever wanted to go beyond that, you have to adopt a budget whereby your unassigned fund balance, this amount that I'm talking about now, is at or below 8% of the upcoming year's budget. So when I did the math for the 1920 ending unassigned fund balance, it's at 7.8%. So you're just about at that threshold. As a matter of fact, you're slightly under that threshold, which is good. You're in compliance with Act 48 with regard to that issue. So I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention. In the middle paragraph on this page, there's an organization in our industry known as the Government Finance Officers Association. And everybody asks, Mark, what's a good fund balance level, a good unassigned fund balance level? Well, they've always said that a target goal is potentially maybe 2 months average district expenditures. So in that second paragraph, I do the math for you. But when you do 2 months average for Connellsville, it's about $12,335,000. So you can see your unassigned is far below that. The problem with the GFOA, although their target is a proven target to shoot for, unfortunately, they don't take into consideration your cap threshold at 8% that the Department of Education wants you to stay at with regard to millage that I just spoke to you about. So although it would be nice to be able to achieve that level, you'd probably have to still keep your unassigned at a lower level to be in compliance with PDE guidelines. But I just wanted to mention that to you. In addition to that, the final paragraph on that particular page talks about monies that you have assigned or set aside, and you actually have in that overall fund balance that I talked about on page 1.7 million of that is still set aside and restricted in regard to the energy savings project, which you kind of went a few years back. And as of 6/30/2020, you had $4,127,677 left in your capital project fund. That's another fund outside of the district's general fund. So once again, just confirming some numbers that are in the big audit report. These are just the highlights extracted from that report. Moving on to page 3, just for the board's sake to look at the overall revenues of the general fund and the overall expenditures of the general fund. Once again, a 5-year history, so you can see. When you look at revenues, again, a 2.1 spike in this most recent year, the 1920 year, about $1,560,000 increase. And those increases occurred across the board, mainly in your local source revenues, which are taxes, IDEA funds, things of that nature, investment earnings, and in state subsidies like retirement, Social Security, transportation, basic subsidy. It was consistent. There were consistent increases across the board in those particular categories of revenues, which led to this $1,560,000 increase. With regard to expenditures, when you look at the next table, you can see there was a decrease for the year. Actually, $518,000 in reduced spending for the 1920 fiscal year. The next area I concentrated on for the board was how did we do budget versus actual. When I looked at the first bullet point at the bottom of page 3, we're dealing with revenues. Actual revenues were less than budget by about almost $54,000. So that's pretty close budget. It's about as close as you can get on a budget that's in the $75 to $77 million range. So that was tight budget in regard to revenues. And I spell out the reasons for that underneath it in that bullet point. On the top of page 4, I take a look at, in the first bullet point, expenditures. Budgeted expenditures exceeded actual about $1,900,000, 2.5%. So I guess if you want to be on either side of the budget, you want to be under from an actual perspective, which you were. And the most notable functional area, I'm sure as most board members would imagine, was student transportation services. As a result of the COVID-19, the students functioning remotely, your under budget was $1,614,000 for the year. So you can see that is the bulk of that $1,933,000 underspending. However, on the other side of the ledger, the one main area where you were over budget was in the special program instruction, special education, things out to the charter schools and things of that nature, by almost $1 million. Just another bullet point in the middle, your career technical center, you had budgeted for tuition costs for the year of $3,073,000. You ended up at $2,900,000, so you were under budget in this particular functional area. And then for the year, the 1920 year, you actually budgeted for a break-even level of revenues matching expenditures, when in fact, the actual results showed that your revenues exceeded your budget by that $1,879,000. So you did well in comparison to what your original budget projections were, and obviously a lot of that had to do with the student transportation services component of what we just talked about. Down below that, some information on food service operations and what I call the consolidated financial position of the district. I won't go into this too much in detail, but when I talk about that in the bottom table there, the full financial statements, and I show a line that says net position, and you see a huge negative balance of $110 million over the last 2 years. Those of you that have been on the board for a while may remember me saying each year that dating back about 5 years now, all school districts are now required to show their proportionate share of the PEASER's pension liability statewide on your books, on your balance sheet, not on the general fund that we just talked about, but when we do the consolidated look at the district in total, you have to show that liability on the book. And also you have to show a liability on the books for the obligation, the commitment of the school district to pay health benefits to your retirees once they leave the district. And those are done by actuarial firms. Those aren't done by our company. We take that information and incorporate it into your consolidated balance sheet. And at the end of 2020, those two liabilities alone were $123,500,000. Those two liabilities alone, which is why you and every school district that I do, we show a negative net position when we look at the consolidated version of the district's finances. As I always tell my board members, it's not as if you have to write a check tomorrow morning for $123 million to anybody. It's more of an accounting issue that has to be reflected on your balance sheet. I wanted you to understand it just in case you were looking at a deficit and wondering what was going on. Food service operations, if you look at changing that position for the year at the bottom of that table on page 4, you see a profit for the 1920 year of $220,000, which is very consistent with the 6/30/19 profit of $228,000. And when you jump to page 5, the first bullet point there tells you what I just told you about the PEASER's liability and the OPEB liability. But the second bullet point, once again, reinforces the operation of the food service fund, again, that I just mentioned to you. I know it's a much smaller fund than the general fund, but nevertheless, it's an operation that needs to be managed just like the general fund. I know to the board that this has been an ongoing balance for a number of years, but as of the end of the year, the cafeteria fund food service owed the general fund about $1,109,000. In the prior year, it was $957,000. And we've talked about this in the past. And the question is, can this money truly be paid back to the general fund? And it's something we've talked about over the years with the board. So I'm just bringing this to your attention. The reason I do is because this liability due to the cafeteria fund is shown on the general fund books as a receivable. In other words, they're anticipating receiving that money, and that $1 million is part of your fund balance. So if we were to determine, if the school district were determined that food service operations could not pay that back, and we're looking at dropping your general fund balance down $1 million. But I noted also in this large paragraph here regarding the food service fund, that Act 630 of 2020, the cafeteria fund actually had about $780,000 in it at 6/30/20. So the possibility exists that some of that money can start to be repaid back without jeopardizing the day-to-day operations of the food service fund. Obviously, you would want to pay it all back, but maybe over time start to cut away at that deficit that's due back to the general fund. And then the last comment with regard to this synopsis is the COVID funding. As the board knows, shortly after the 6/30/20 year, you got some significant monies in the EASERS funding, EASERS 1 and 2 allocations, which is about $9.5 million. And so that's going to be important, as you know, to handle and account for properly in 2021 and 21-22. So it's important to understand the rules and compliance issues related to that funding, because I know that in the future that will have to be audited as a federal program as we do each year. So it's going to be important that you know that you're spending properly, your accounting for that's proper, and you have all your ducks in a row with regard to that funding. It's a good thing that there comes some accounting work that follows through on that. So you got to be ready for that. And then the other comments on the final page were just some of the comments that I made from an internal controls perspective over the years to the board, very similar to prior years. The final issue I wanted to mention is because you receive and expend over $750,000 of federal monies on an annual basis, we not only do a financial audit, which is what I've been talking about so far, but we do a compliance audit. And each year we choose different programs. And this year we chose the National School Lunch Program and your IDEA program. And in the back of your thick audit report, we give the results of that. And in a nutshell, what we told PDE when they looked at those pages is there were no findings of a material nature related to either of those programs from a compliance perspective. And again, that's a good thing. That's the type of report we want to issue to PDE. And I think that's it. If the board has any questions at this time, I'll try to answer them. But if you don't have any tonight and you're going through that thick report and say, I'm going to have Mark back for another meeting, or we can call him directly in my office, always feel free to do so. I'll answer any questions I can and be happy to come back to a future meeting if there are any issues that need to be discussed again.
$779,000 cash on hand at the food service. Is that actually in their account, or is that actually in our fund balance instead of actually just the fund?
No, that was actually cash on hand and reconciled in their account as of 6/30/20.
So you said we can start to pay that back. That was kind of numbers that they keep them solvent. We may be able to start to pay that back to the same time.
Yeah, it's been about 5 or 6 years ago, there was a plan originally thought to send back about $250,000 a year. Thought that might be an appropriate amount to start to weed down that deficit or that obligation, and then but still keep enough money in the food service fund in order to operate. Probably the best person to ask for that would probably be Dawn, your food service person, because she's in the crux of handling those funds and determining what's needed and what isn't needed. But it just looks from an independent perspective when I see those numbers at the end of the year and how much is owed, that you would think that at least a reasonable portion could be sent to the general fund and start to whittle away at that debt obligation.
The year before was raised about 228, this year is about 220, so we were in the 220 range, maybe just taking what their cost is now.
Yeah, to me, it wouldn't appear it would be reasonable.
Any other questions, members? I guess not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, board members.
Moving to public comment for agenda items, we We have a few tonight. Rick Levansky, please.
Why do you keep this mask on? Yes?
No, good. Cool down.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me speak tonight, and from a member of the public, I really appreciate the work you guys and ladies are doing for this community. This is an incredibly thankless job you're doing. But anyway, I originally wanted to talk about putting a meeting on the, an item on the agenda, which I see is already on it, concerning payment for the maintenance of the Olympic Oak. Not to repeat too much, but about 2 years ago, we raised funds and we put a memorial down at the stadium for Woodruff and Blue Jack, and we also raised enough funds to do much needed maintenance for the Olympic Oak, which had not been done since 2003. And Barton Tree experts came down and they did pruning, they did lawn care, they did root care, and they put a new lighting system in, and that total was $3,000. That was all raised through private funds. We originally wanted to fundraise to make a permanent fund for maintenance of the oak. Unfortunately, we did not raise enough funds for that for this year. Mr. Matt Murphy, who did the maintenance in 2019, recently sent me a closed estimate, which I think you have, requesting that he would like to do this maintenance this year to a total of $836.20. And I was here tonight to ask the board to put this on the agenda for Wednesday. I see that this item is already on the agenda. So I'm now here to ask if anybody has any questions of this.
You're ready.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Next we have Mary Grace Utah.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mary Grace Utella. I'm an elected tax collector for Dunmore Township. And I see on your agenda this evening you're going to be discussing approval for resolution establishing tax collector compensation for the collection of real estate as proposed. Did all of you members receive the information that I have given to the district today? Yes. I also emailed it as well, and I left out a list of the tasks and duties of the elected tax collector, and I did email them, so I'm not sure if you all got it or not. I'm sorry, do you have your laptop? Are you online? Anyone here?
Yeah, I got mine. I assume everyone got it.
Okay. I do have a few copies here. So I can give them out. So, basically, I just wanted to make sure that you did receive the information, and does anyone have any questions? We also have 2 elected tax collectors here this evening. I'm sure you quoted from, I'm sorry, and Mr. James Stevens from Consolidated Township. So, does anyone have any questions concerning the information that I have given you? Okay, so I did give you a copy of the letter that I had sent on November 24th, and I believe I emailed it as well. And I did share information as to the school districts here in Fayette County and what they pay their tax collectors. and an email here, and then the list of duties. So, you don't say in the agenda exactly what the pay compensation will be. Is that something that will appear on Wednesday's agenda? Yes?
Yes,
Okay, so you're going to put on the agenda to set the pay compensation, but as of tonight, you don't know what that will be, is that correct? At this particular meeting?
yeah, I think we know what the compensation, the resolution that we're gonna read, tonight, yes.
Okay, so you're going to read a resolution setting tax collector's compensation. And we have an opportunity, to make public comment, but how can we comment if we don't know what that compensation will be?
Well, the opportunity at the end of the meeting to comment as well.
Okay, all right then, thank you very much.
Next we have James.
My name's James Stevens. I'm the tax collector for Collinsville Township. Really, I want to just address the board tonight and explain to you is that whenever I was first elected, I didn't realize how much work actually goes into this. So I was hoping that you gentlemen and ladies would at least look over that information before you make a final decision on compensation, because there is a lot more to it than what people think. I mean, dealing with the public, it can be trying at times. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. This time, that's all I really have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Very quick. And
Yes, question.
why is there a difference between what you get paid by the county and what's paid by the school board? Is it-
Well, first off, the county and the township share one bill. So we're getting paid by both for the same bill. Okay? Also, there are no installments with the county and township, which with the school board there is, that adds extra. And I mean, you have 200 extra installments times 3, now you're talking 600 extra payments, which you're doing. And it takes as much time to do that as it takes to do one. So you're looking at literally 4 times the amount of work to get paid the same amount of money. Also, if you guys really want to look at it, we collect almost 3 times as much for the school district as we do for the county. So there's a big difference in the amount of money we're dealing with. I mean, if you want to talk to your business manager, assistant business manager, we try to do everything that we can to get them the information, the funds in a timely manner. Like the county, we go up there once a month with you guys. If we're not taking money to you, it's every 2 weeks. It would just be so tough on everybody. The amount of money that we're dealing with and everything. So, I mean, it is a lot more difficult. You're also looking at, we have to run to the bank that much more often, the post office. There's a lot of extra stuff that people don't actually realize that we're doing with this. And it all takes time.
Okay. And then 2, the county wages are much less than the wages that you pay your employees here in the school district. A clerical 2 probably starts out at maybe, I want to say maybe $11 or $12 an hour. What does your clerical 2 start out here? 16? You cannot compare the wages. Your custodian here makes double than what the custodian makes at the county level.
We compare wages and tax collectors.
Pardon me?
You're comparing our wages of our employees to tax collectors?
You were comparing what we get from the county
Right.
to what we collect from you.
But
Right.
it's independent contract, so that's why I'm asking, but now you're comparing our employees to.
Well, what I'm saying is your wages are different, so, and also, we put many more hours in than we do with our county and our township. We have installments, I accept credit card payments now. You know, in the city of Connellsville, I think they have more than 1,000 less parcels than me in Delaware Township. I think I have like maybe 43. They have a full-time treasurer, a full-time clerk, and a part-time clerk. I have only me. And I can tell you that there are many times when I put 16 hours in a day in my office. So we do work very hard at our job, and I think we do a very good job for you. And if you look at the school districts, what they pay here in Fayette County, you'll see that Brownsville pays 3% commission. Laurel Highlands pays 0.75%, but I think their assessed value is like $1 billion. Fraser pays $12.50, and as you probably all know, they had taken a cut. They had gone to court. The judge ruled in their favor, the school board appealed it, and then it went to arbitration. So they get $12.50 per bill. The Uniontown School District gets 2%. And Albert Gallatin, they pay their tax collectors, they have a salary, so they get paid all year round. And it varies, so there's no set formula. So why should we get paid any less than these other school districts are paying? We deserve a fair and reasonable compensation, that's what we want. Okay? Does anybody have any other questions? Yes.
Albert Gallatin, salaries paid monthly, vary.
They get a salary, they get paid on a monthly basis, I believe, 12 months out of the year. I have asked, I did a right to know to ask how they come up with paying their tax collectors, and I haven't got that information yet. I don't know how they come up with a salary for each one of their collectors. I think their salaries are different. And I can't tell you why that is because I haven't got to receive that information yet.
Could be because
You know, I'm not sure. I have talked to a few of those tax collectors in the Upper Gallatin School District, and they actually don't know what the formula is. And I don't think the school knows either exactly what the formula is, but they get paid different. They do.
okay, the tax collector should know which they collect school district and divide that by their tax bills, and that would give them an
Right.
idea.
Correct.
So the tax
It
collector,
is all different. Each collector in that school district, it would be different per bill because they get a different salary, each one of them.
yeah, just like ours are different from Holston to Vanderbilt. It's completely different.
Well, we all get paid the same per bill. But what you're saying is the amount of bills.
Right.
And I believe that's why you went possibly from a commission to per bill. I'm not sure of that.
That's all I have.
Okay, anybody else have any other questions? Oh, and one other thing I wanted to point out now. You know, the tax claim bureau that collects your delinquents, they get 5% commission of the penalty amount of that bill, plus they charge a $40 cost on top of that. So my example, a $60,000 assessed property, at 14.241 mils, is $854.89. If we collected on that, it would be $550. If it would go to tax claim, it would be $940.38, and they would get $47.02 for that same bill that we just got paid, or if we would have got paid for it, it would have been $550. So, wanted to let you know that, okay?
I just have a question.
Yes.
So when it goes up from 854 to 940, that's the penalty, correct?
Correct,
And then the money that's compensated to the taxpayer comes out of the penalty.
correct. And then they
So-
charge a $40 fee, but that's their cost, just to process that bill.
So the quote-unquote taxpayers, quote-unquote students aren't impacted by that. Have that person going into arrears and going into penalty, there's no money lost to the students at home.
What do you mean there's no money lost? I mean, they're getting a 5% commission.
But the amount set by the boards, whatever board you speak of, isn't changed by a delinquent penalty tax account. The amount of that more compensation.
You're still going to get your penalty amount,
Correct.
but they're taking 5%. Do they not take 5% of that?
You could clarify for me, I appreciate it. It did help me out.
Thank you.
The last we have, Sherry.
They said what I need to say, so.
All right, thank you. That is all for public comment. Moving to athletics and recreation, please.
Thank you for that. Award spring grades. First approval to award bids for spring sports supplies and equipment to the lowest responsible bidder, meeting specifications. No objection to first and second development.
Hearing none, we'll place that on the agenda.
That's all I have. Mr. Monjo?
Nothing,
Mr. Knight?
nothing,
Mr. Adams?
nothing, thank you.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving to buildings and grounds, please.
Thank you. Item A, request the approval of the following events and building use requests, subject to adherence with the district's health and safety plan and all applicable state and federal laws and orders, including any mandatory or recommended cancellations, rescheduling, or postponement, and on the conditions that register provide an event or use specific health and safety plan acceptable to the district. Should I read all of these, or can we spread these on the minutes for when?
As presented.
1 through 7.
We can spread 1 through 7.
Items 1 through
7? Yes. Hearing no objections, we'll place that on the agenda.
Item B, request approval to authorize the administration to solicit RFPs from architects, engineers, and consultants for the development of specifications to solicit competitive bids for the replacement of the Dunbar Township Elementary School roof. Projects to be funded from the capital reserve fund. And without objections, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
We'll place that on the agenda.
Item C, discuss the request for the district to pay for maintenance for the Olympic Oak Tree located at Falcon Stadium at an estimated cost of $836.20. And without objection, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
We'll place that on the agenda.
Item D,
request the approval to hire a 4-hour custodian effective February 1st, 2021. And without objections, I'd like that placed on
We'll place that on the agenda.
the agenda. And, there was a committee meeting that was held on Thursday, January 21st, 2021, 6 o'clock. And that's all we have. Mr. President.
Thank you. Moving to Carnegie Free Library, please.
Thank you, Mr. O'Malley. The only thing I have is, according to the last email that I received from the Carnegie Free Library, that the library is still shut down because of the COVID. That's all I have, Mr. Lake. That's all we have, thank you.
Thank you. Moving to Consolidated Career Technical Center, Mr. Blake.
I don't think we have nothing on different sections.
No.
Mr. Marquis, you got anything there? Yes, sir. Mr. Mondell?
Yeah.
Danger?
No. Thank you. Moving to curriculum, Mr. Morrow.
Thank you. Request approval to purchase TIN Spike CXII Easy Spot teacher kits at an approximate cost of $21,599.85 to be paid for from the education. This is going in and out, I apologize. For an ATSI schools as budgeted. No objection, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, we'll place that on the agenda.
Request approval to purchase TI 30X IIS scientific calculators at an approximate cost of $4,000 to be paid for out of the contingency of educational grant for the ATSI schools as budgeted. Without objection, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
We'll place that on the agenda.
Request approval for a virtual conference for Mr. Greg Bartray, guidance counselor, to participate in a virtual autistic spectrum masterclass February 24th and February 25th, 2021, at a cost of $291.32 for registration as budgeted. Without objection, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
We'll place that on the agenda.
We had a committee meeting on January 19th at 4:30. And is there anything further, Mr. Martray? Mrs. Sangston?
Nothing, thank you.
Dr. Cummings?
I have nothing, thank you.
That's all we have in the curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe a comment to the finance committee. Those two items for calculators, that money was budgeted. Is it, we talked about moving some things into the capital reserve account. I don't know if that could be one of them or not. Mr. Brad. Yeah, check into that.
Everybody's got anything else for you guys?
Okay. Moving to cyber, Mr. Manzel.
I have nothing, Art?
I have nothing, thank you.
Thank you. Federal programs, Mr. Marquis.
Thank you, Mr. O'Malley. There was a committee meeting held January 19th, 2021 at 4:30. And that's all I have. Mrs. Sampson? Mr. Marshall? Dr. Coons?
I have nothing, thank you.
That's all, Mr. O'Malley.
Thank you. Finance, Mr. Monjo.
Thank you. Item A, request the approval to exonerate local tax collectors from collecting the 2020-21 real estate taxes and to accept and submit to the county the 2020-2021 settlements subject to audit. Without objection, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Place that on the agenda.
Item B, request the approval of the resolution establishing tax collector compensation for the collection of the real estate as proposed. And without objections, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, we'll place that on the agenda.
Item C, Request the approval to accept the donation of a piano from the Shriner family in Constable, PA, for West Crawford Elementary School. Without objection, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
We'll place that on the agenda.
Item D was just the committee meeting was held on January 21st at 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah, no.
Mr. Grinaldo, do you have anything to add? Mr. Pandela? And Mr. Grinaldo is not here today. Anything to add?
Mr. Montiel, do you happen to have those, under the tax compensation, do you happen to have those? You need to read one of them.
The pertinent parts of this resolution. Be resolved by the Board of School Directors as follows. Starting January 1st, 2022, and thereafter until changes, the school district will pay non-employee compensation to the elected tax collectors at the following rates. $5.50 for real estate tax bill. These commissions will be paid as per the following as long as receipt of the required DCED report are submitted to the 10th of the month following collections for the more frequently if desired. The other additional provision, $1 for each real estate tax installment payment, which is be a total of $3 extra for each of the 3 additional permitted real estate tax installments. And to be basically, it's the same compensation that's being paid right now.
Okay, thank you.
One more paragraph. Paragraph number 2. Compensation will be paid in equal bi-weekly payments to the tax collector from August through January, consistent with the school district's typical and normal payroll schedule, as long as the tax collector has performed all required duties and made all required reports to the school district. No compensation will be paid to a tax collector at any time when the tax collector is not in full compliance with any separate policies, rules, guidelines applicable to elected tax collectors. Notwithstanding anything in this or any other resolution, including without limitation the payment of compensation on a bi-weekly basis, no tax collector shall be made, treated, considered, deemed, or determined to be an employee of the school district for any purpose.
Thank you. We'll add that to Wednesday night's agenda. Moving on to food services. Mr. Marquis.
Thank you, Mr. Reddick. We have no agenda items in this time. Mr. Saxon? Sorry, Mr. Penzel. Mr. Harshman, do you have an add? Anything so yet, Mr. Reddick? Thank you.
Thank you. Moving to personnel review and liaison, Mr. Marquis.
Thank you, Mr. Maddox. A, request approval, appoint as a high school less than 12-month guidance secretary, effective January 27, 2021, and direct administration to advertise and/or post vacancies potentially created by this appointment. I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Place that on the agenda.
B, request approval to hire as a personal aide, student aide, effective December 16, 2020. I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Place that on the agenda.
Item C, request approval as a long-term substitute teacher at the middle school for the second semester of the 2021 school year. I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Place that on the agenda.
Item D, request approval for A, to take an intermittent unpaid days as needed for the remainder of the 2021 school year. I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Place that on the agenda.
Item C, request approval for A, to take intermittent unpaid days as needed for the remainder of the 2021 school year. I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Place that on the agenda.
Item F, request approval for unpaid aid to take intermittent unpaid days as needed for the remainder of the 2021 school year. I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Place that on the agenda.
Item G, request approval for custodian to take a leave of absence for the remainder of the 2021 school year. I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Place that on the agenda.
Request approval of the following additions. This is the H. Request approval of the following additions to the professional substitute list for the 2021 school year. I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Place that on the agenda.
Item I, request approval for A to take intermittent unpaid days as needed for the remainder of the 2021 school year. I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Place that on the agenda.
Request approval for an A to take intermittent unpaid days as needed for the remainder of the 2021 school year. Have that placed on the agenda.
Place that on the agenda.
And request approval for the permanent contract for the following professional employee based upon completion of 3-year satisfactory service with the Consolidated School District. I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Place that on the agenda.
Item L, request approval to accept retirement of secretary effective August 2nd, 2021. I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Place that on the agenda.
And item M, request approval to assign additional duties of grants accounting liaison to Kathy Rupert, purchasing manager, and annual stipend of $5,000 effective January 28, 2021. I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Place that on the agenda.
Request approval, this will be item N, request approval to accept the resignation of LPN effective January 29, 2021. I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Place that on the agenda.
And our committee meeting was held on January 20th, 21, at 11 o'clock. Mr. Ronaldo, do you have anything? Mr. Montiel? Mr. Bradley? That's all we have.
Thank you, Mr. Romero.
Yes, sir.
Item item M. Request approval to allow business office employees up to 90 hours of overtime as assigned by the Assistant Superintendent, Finance and Operations. I'm not sure if that's how it was read.
No,
Would
no.
you change the motion?
Yes.
We just change that, motion, with
Yeah, with it being an agenda setting meeting, it would be the prerogative of the committee that's presenting that motion to make that change to the agenda. Obviously, it is subject to public comments and at the end of this meeting and at the beginning of the next meeting, prior to any action being taken on the specific motion, but it is able to be modified, in connection with the agenda setting.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Moving to policy and legislation, Mr. Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. Romanek. I have one item that's not on the agenda, which is given to me this evening. Section 200 pupils, titled Graduation, Code 217. You can make the correction on page 2 that says, in order to comply with Chapter 4 Regulations 4-4.24 relating to the local assessment system, Act 6 and Act 158, the graduation requirements for the class of
should read 2022, 2023. And, no questions or objections, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Yes, we'll place that on the agenda. Could you get that to the, board secretary so she can get on the agenda for Wednesday, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, question.
Supposed to be read three times, is this amendment to that article after you have three times through this?
So to help me understand, it's an amendment to, is it the student handbook or the course what was it an amendment to?
Policy. It's an amendment to a policy. You read the policy for 1 month.
So one of the board's policies that are on the website? Yeah, so that does have to go through that process of a first reading and then a second reading and then an adoption. Yes.
Thank you.
Anything?
That's all I have, Mr. Martucci. Mr. Gronald. Mr. Bradley.
Nothing, thank you.
That's all we have.
Thank you. Safety and security, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have nothing this evening. Mrs. Sampson, do you have anything to add? Mr. Martucci?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Pardo? And that's all we have.
Special education.
Thank you. Request approval for Christy DiCarlo, speech and language pathology, to complete a practicum supervisor, special education with Mr. D'Amico beginning January 28, 2021 through June 10, 2021. Without objection, like that placed on the agenda.
Place that on the agenda.
Request approval to have Amy Kinnear and Kathleen Schaefer, teachers, to take a VMAT online training at an approximate cost of $298 as budgeted. Without objections, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
We'll place that on the agenda.
We had a committee meeting on January 14th, 2021 at 5 o'clock. It was a virtual meeting. And our next meeting, I believe, has been changed, and I didn't write it down in here, so I'll have that for Wednesday. Mr. Lake, anything further? Mr. Martucci? Mr. D'Amico?
Nothing, thank you.
That's all we have, Mr. Knight. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving to student services, please. Mr. Monter, take that, please.
Item A, request approval for Ashley Ewing to complete her internship, which is $600 for 240 hours being direct contact with students. For school counseling through California University of Pennsylvania with the district school counselor, Tori Sparks and Lori Shelley. And without objections, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Place that on the agenda.
Item B, request approval for Tori Sparks, Jamie Gillespie Quinn, Greg Martray, all counselors, to participate in the 2021 Virtual National School Counseling Leadership Conference held February 10th and 11th, 2021, at an approximate cost of $537 as budgeted, and without objection, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
We'll place that on the agenda.
And the committee meeting will be held Monday, February the 8th, 2021, at 2 o'clock. This is Sampson, do you have anything to add? Mr. Lake?
Nothing, thank you.
And Mrs. Mika?
I've nothing, thank you.
That's all we have.
Thank you. Moving to technology, Mr. Pedro.
Request approval to purchase 350 Lenovo Chromebooks from Safety Technology Solutions at a cost of $97,230 as budgeted. No questions, objections, I'd like to have it passed.
Place that on the agenda.
Mr. Hart, you got anything else? Nothing, thank you. Mark Craig? Good.
Nothing else, thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brad, is that another item that we could possibly use capital reserve funds for? The Chromebooks?
estimate. Yeah, we're looking at that grant for that.
Okay,
Look,
thank you. Moving to transportation, Mr. Blake. I'm sorry. Transportation, Mr. Blake.
Request approval of private student transportation contract with Tracy Field during the 2020-2022 request for projection. That's on the agenda.
We'll place that on the agenda.
And then the committee meeting was held on Thursday, January 21st, 2021. That's all we have. Mr. Van Telly, anything?
Nothing else, thank you.
Mr. Hartman? Nothing. Mr. Evans?
Nothing, thank you.
That's all we have, Mr. Madison.
Thank you. Under President's report, I have nothing, but I did forget to mention at the start of the meeting, we had an executive session from 6 p.m. to approximately 8 on personnel issues. We have no items for public comment on agenda.
allow them an opportunity if they want to speak on the agenda item that wasn't listed. Yeah, to give the public an opportunity, correct, Mr. Witt? To give the public an opportunity to speak on the item that wasn't listed that we then discussed for taxpayer compensation.
Okay.
If anybody would like to, if they don't want to, then we can move on. Thanks, Mr. O'Malley.
Would you please clarify non-employee pay? Will we still be on payroll, or are you giving us a 1099?
No, so the payroll status is continued just for confirming for benefit purposes or anything like that, and clarifies that you guys aren't considered employees for.
Okay.
But everything else is remaining.
Okay, thank you.
One comment. Says how you wanted to compare us to the county. You know, the county does pay us for sending out the reminders at the end of the year, the same as we do we get $270 something from the county, we get $270 for the reminders. I mean, see how you guys do want to consider anything else, at least consider making it even with the county.
Thank you.
Yes. Presently, you, the school district, reimburse, pays for the software that we use. You didn't mention that in that resolution. Is that still going to be your contention? Are you still going to pay for that software?
It is part of it. You didn't read the last page.
Oh, okay.
It's on the second.
Could you please read the rest of it?
It's on the second page of that resolution.
Says all tax collectors will be required to use RAK tax collection software to settle with the district. A computer and the RAK software will be provided by the district at no cost to the collector.
Okay, so my question is, since you didn't read it in its entirety, do you have to vote on it again?
This is work session.
Oh, just a work session, you didn't vote on it, okay.
Yeah, we're going to vote on this
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Okay, and that's the only proposal that you have is that which you read, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving to, Assistant Superintendent comments. Dr. Kinsey, anything to add tonight?
I have
Nothing. Superintendent Brad.
I wanted to recognize these students, and I'll re-recognize them on Wednesday. We're very proud of for our performing arts and our instrumental music department. These students were chosen competitive audition and represent Collinsville at the 2021 Pennsylvania Music Educators Association District 1 Chorus. This year, as all, a little bit different, and it was virtual. So Riley Artis, Ethan Hamilton, Alexander Huffman, Lacey Morris, and Hunter Roden. This spring, they will submit virtual auditions for PMEA state chorus. And those of you that have been around a number of years realize the honor that is to be able to participate and be able to audition for state chorus. We wish them the best, and we wish them the luck, and we're proud of them representing us. And also, as January is School Director Recognition Month, it's my privilege and my honor to present the 9 of our Board of School Directors members their certificates from Collinsville School District for their service to the students, the families, the community, staffs of Collinsville School District, and we thank them for their service, hours, and make on behalf of the staff, on behalf of the students, and on behalf of everyone in Collinsville District. Thank you, school board directors, for all you do.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. If there's nothing else, we will adjourn and see you on Wednesday. Thank you.